built up. It's a little easier with grain because there's not as much processing requirement. However, with the fiber, that industry really needs to build, and the infrastructure for how to process the plant and make all of the many products that can be made is being built as we speak. So whether that will be online for 2020 or more like 2023, that's
Right.
kind of the big question.
The one thing that worries me about that is unless we start looking at cordons off with, fiber production versus CBD production, we could have some cross-pollination within 5, 10, 15. I even saw a 20-mile cross-pollination in Colorado. So that can happen, and we've got to start thinking about this and getting in front of that from a local perspective to make sure that people are protected as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have a complete solution for that. I mean, it's really, really going to be a lot of neighbors talking to neighbors and getting an idea of what's going on. And it also might be that there's more regionalized production where some areas focus more on flour, some focus more on fiber, some on grain. Other crops certainly do that, where seed production takes place in one part of the country and the crop production takes place in another part of the country. Or, we'll see eventually what happens with if the cannabinoids will mostly be grown indoors versus outdoors.
Right.
I would hate to see that happen just because plants are happy outside,
meant to be outside,
and the sun
right?
is free. But
so true.
Yeah. So that will have to slowly get resolved, but there are other crops that have to deal with those same issues, and they have figured out a way to do it. So I don't think it's going to be such a problem in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I agree. It's something we need to be thinking about, and we don't necessarily have to react now. One of the things that excites me the most about talking with you, Dr. Shelby Ellison, who is associate in the Department of Horticulture at UW Madison, faculty associate, I apologize. So joining us here today on the Veterans for Cannabis podcast, and I'm Joshua Littrell, right? Shameless plug. So, Dr. Ellison, when you guys have set up a course at UW Madison, is that correct?
Yeah, that's my little baby.
That is beautiful and so exciting because the science behind this has been lacking, obviously, even though we had tons of data from early 1900s. But man, to be able to finally get this into the universities and teach this from an agricultural standpoint, what we're going to be able to do on a cannabinoid research standpoint is really tremendous. And I just applaud you for being the one who's carrying that torch at the university. That is so exciting from our standpoint. And all our listeners are going to be really excited and probably sign up to go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison to listen to your, teachings and help guide this process. So what does that course look like?
Yeah, so one of the main motivations behind the class and how I got involved in this industry in general was, I'm a geneticist, but I've always worked in plants, and I'm really passionate about plants and what they can do for us. And I work in the Department of Horticulture. We don't have tons of undergrad majors or big classes like you might in some of the other, like in chemistry. So I was like, what can I teach that would bring students in to learn about plants? And of course, cannabis was my first thought. So I had approached our department chair, and he got very excited by it. So we decided teaching a class on the science of hemp, and it's an introductory course, and it kind of covers all aspects of hemp. So legal issues, advocacy issues, as well as how to grow. And it's not just for CBD, so also for grain and for fiber. Sure. And then it's neat, at the end of the semester, the students will work in groups and pick a hemp-derived product, and then they have to give a presentation on kind of how that product is made, what are the main reasons we should be using hemp for this product, what are the competing markets, and what is the path forward for trying to make this product successful. So I'm very excited to see what the students are going to present.
I'm excited to see how many you get signed up for. I bet it's going to be a sold-out class, as I do my air quotations.
It's right now. So it is the spring of 2020, and you were right. It is completely full at 50 students.
Wow, that is awesome. What's the feedback you're getting from the student body?
So far, I think it's been really positive. I think that they feel the same. They're excited that the university is embracing this field that's one of the largest growing job sectors in the United States, and that they're able to get a little bit of training. And so pretty positive. And I've been bringing in speakers in all the different topics because, like I said, I've only been working in a year, so there are definitely people with more expertise than me, and I want to have them share their insight for all the students as well.
Well, if you ever need a good old Southern boy to come up and do a little teaching for those Yankees up your way, happy to help out. So we've got about 5 minutes left. There's some things that are happening at the USDA right now, and they just came out yesterday with some new insurance guidelines, and Wisconsin's going to be included in the pilot insurance program, which is awesome. But the Hemp National Needs Survey, do you know anything about that, and maybe some preliminary results that have come out?
Yeah, so I was very involved with conducting that study, and the purpose of that study was really for us to survey the farmers, the processors, all the hemp stakeholders, and figure out, okay, what areas of research are really important right now moving forward. Right. So how are we, how can the universities help out and present that to the USDA for what they should fund for us to do research on. So definitely some of the big things. So people are very concerned about the markets and the economics of growing hemp and how we can improve those markets, get products to the marketplace, get consumers buying these products, as well as the human nutritional quality aspects of this work. So, doing the actual CBD studies, the figuring out how CBD actually is helping with some of the claims. There are there's some initial research, but we need a lot more research to kind of support what CBD is actually doing in the human body and what ailments it can truly make a difference for. And then a lot of focus on the breeding and genetics. So making sure that we have varieties that perform well, that have high cannabinoid content for whatever cannabinoid you're growing, if you're growing for CBD, that are compliant. And there's a big side of that, which is not really a research, nothing that we can do as researchers, but what we can do is show what's possible with the plant and with the genetics we have. And people can take that to the USDA, or they can use it to lobby to say, listen, this is we don't see varieties that are doing better than 30-1 right now for CBD to THC content, but yet you've put this 0.3% threshold on our THC. This doesn't seem to be backed by science why that threshold was made in the first place. So let's change that. So some of the regulatory type issues, we can't do the lobbying or, advocacy for that at the university. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
You work with organizations like us to make that happen. Dr. Ellison, do you think that will be changed? And I know that's kind of, not your purview, if you will, but do you think that 0.3 will be lifted up to maybe 1%?
So I know that that there were over 4,700 comments that were made with regard to the interim final ruling from the USDA. And I can tell you that the majority of those had to do with that 0.3% THC threshold. I did recently see the USDA comment on that and say that that was actually out of their jurisdiction, as far as they do not have the ability to change that number because it was written into the 2018 Farm Bill.
Which is
true. So it will take an act of Congress, so Congress needs to change that threshold. So I definitely think there's a lot of momentum behind that, a lot of people that want that change. So gotta bring it up to the Capitol, and the same arguments that were made in people's comments to the USDA need to now be pushed up, to Congress to really try to change that number. I hope it is changed, because the way that it is written right now makes it very, very difficult to grow hemp and make a profit.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And that's what our job is. From Veterans for Cannabis standpoint, it's our job as a call to action. And our listeners who are going to hear this podcast and hear you are going to be so excited and fired up to, and that's what we're saying. Hey, you're hearing it right now. Get off your butts, guys. Call your senators, call your representatives, start at the local level, then go to the state level, and you got to end up at the federal level to get these laws changed the way we need them changed. Dr. Shelby Ellison, thank you so much for joining us today on the Veterans for Cannabis podcast. If you don't mind, just give a shameless plug to where you're associated at, and we'll close out after that.
Yeah, so I'm in the Department of Horticulture at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and we have a UW Extension website, all things hemp, and if you want to go check that out, we have lots of resources and educational information on there, so check it out.
You are the best. Dr. Ellison, thank you so much. We cannot say thank you enough for all the work you're doing and everything you're going to bring to the table in this cannabis industry, even though you and I have to call it hemp, technically. So thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye.